Sadly, this was not the last bad news for Anil. He was then taken to court by his former business partner and Swedish company Ericsson for failing to meet debt repayments on an $80 million loan that he had taken from them. The Indian courts ruled that this money had to be given back to Ericsson by Anil, and in case he failed to do so, he would be sent to jail. Just days before he was going to be taken to jail, guess who stepped in like a superhero? Elder brother Mukesh Ambani came in, saved his brother some jail time, paid his debt, and also saved the family name from being tarnished. Well done, Mukesh. This is the story of one of India's most well-known businessmen, Dhirubhai Ambani, and his two sons Mukesh Ambani and Anil Ambani. Dhirubhai Ambani was an Indian businessman who founded the Reliance Industries in 1958 as a small venture trading in spices and polyester, and then went on to become one of the biggest business powerhouses in the country, closing the latest fiscal year with a revenue in excess of $120 billion. Our story today is not about Dhirubhai Ambani and how he came from a small town in Gujarat and went on to establish a company that would go on to become the largest company in India by market cap. Our story today is about his two sons, Mukesh Ambani and Anil Ambani, the different paths they chose in terms of business after the death of their father, and how today one of them has gone on to become one of the wealthiest men in the world with a net worth of about $90 billion, while the other is now bankrupt and claims his net worth is zero. Now, until the death of their father, Dhirubhai Ambani, in 2002, everything was working just fine for the Ambani family. The family's business had now become a massive $15 billion conglomerate, and both brothers, Mukesh and Anil, were working in their father's company, handling important portfolios and flourishing under the wings of their father. However, as soon as their father, Dhirubhai Ambani, died in 2002 without a will, things began to turn ugly with respect to which brother would eventually take over the business. Initially, it was decided that the elder brother, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, would become chairman of the company and the younger brother would become vice chairman. However, that didn't really work well, you see, because both brothers wanted to exercise authority and both wanted to take important decisions for the business, and since both of them had very different personalities, their decisions would often end up clashing with each other and affect the business. By this time, Reliance Group had become a major player in India's economy, so even the then finance minister, Mr. P. Chidambaram, tried to intervene and settle this feud between the brothers, but that didn't really work well either. When even one of the most powerful government ministers could not settle the dispute, it was time for someone even more powerful than the finance ministers to step in and take charge. And that is where their mother came into the scene and said, okay, enough is enough, boys. We have to settle this, and this is how we will do it. Now, the solution brought in by the mother was very simple. Since both brothers were unwilling to give complete control of the company to the other brother, the business was going to be split into two halves, one controlled by Mukesh and the other by Anil. Mukesh got the more established businesses such as oil, gas, petrochemicals, refining and manufacturing parts of the empire, while Anil got the more newer, the more flashier parts of the business, which included electricity, financial services and telecoms, industries that had great potential for future growth. There were two main conditions that were agreed upon though. Neither brother could enter the other brother's industry for at least 10 years, and each brother had to give the other the first right to buy any company in case of any other buyers. Finally, after a long and lengthy 3 years, the Reliance Industries Limited split was approved by India's Supreme Court in 2005, and both brothers went their separate ways with their separate portfolios. Mukesh rebranded his half as Reliance Industries Limited, and Anil dubbed his half as Reliance Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group. Now, in the early years after the split, Anil Ambani actually did really well in business. He thrived. He disrupted the telecoms industry by introducing a low-cost mobile network called Reliance Communications. He also invested heavily in securing the 3G wireless network for India and went on to become the largest mobile network provider in the country. He later went on to purchase a company called AdLab Films and their chain of movie theaters in India, and called this company Reliance Media Works. He later went on to establish some serious connections with Hollywood celebrities and also invested $1.2 billion in Steven Spielberg's company, DreamWorks. Due to this deal, Anil became part of some of the biggest movies you've heard of, such as War Horse, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, He used to screen these Hollywood movies at his home in Mumbai and would invite the complete list of who is who in India, but of course his brother Mukesh was never invited. In 2008, Anil's golden years reached their peak when he went for an IPO for Reliance Power and made history in India's stock market by selling shares worth $3 billion in just 60 seconds. Finally, after all these successes in his business, Anil reached the number 6 spot on the Forbes Billion Rich list with a net worth of $42 billion, just one step and $1 billion behind his elder brother Mukesh Ambani. Now things began going south for Anil Ambani because in order to fund his extension plans for Reliance Communications and to keep up with changing technology, he had to keep borrowing. He had to keep getting bigger and bigger loans, and he did that. Thankfully, a South African telecoms giant came into the picture called MTN, and talks started happening about merging the two companies and forming one large telecoms company. This could have been massive for Anil Ambani. This could have been a real game changer for Anil Ambani because both India and South Africa were at that point growing economies, and this deal was valued at over $70 billion. Massive. But now guess who comes along to ruin this beautiful romance between MTN and Reliance Communications and ruin the party for both? You guessed it, Mukesh Ambani. Remember that deal they had that gave the other brother the right to first buy? Well, Mukesh Ambani went to court and said this merger could not happen based on that deal. MTN basically decided to avoid the legal battle and backed off from the deal. So now the only good option that Anil Ambani had to inject more funds into his business was now gone. And now the only option left for him was to borrow more money, and he did that. This time he borrowed $1.2 billion from 3 Chinese banks. Now Anil's problems didn't really end there. In fact, things were just getting started to get worse for him. You see, in 2011, he had taken a loan of $922 million to establish a 780 megawatt power plant. This seemed like a great idea at that point and could eventually have gone on to be very fruitful and profitable for Anil Ambani, given the fact that he had signed a deal with his brother Mukesh that would ensure that Mukesh gave him gas to establish and run the power plant at half the government prices. However, as soon as construction began, the government stepped in and decided that this deal could not happen because this would be very unfair to the gas market. The government thought that the prices within the gas market had to remain the same. This came as a huge blow to Anil Ambani, and this came as great news for Mukesh Ambani because in fact his profits doubled due to this government ruling. After this long, exhaustive case, both brothers decided to scrap the non-competition agreement brokered by their mother and decided to form a new deal. According to the new deal, Mukesh Ambani could not enter the gas-based power generation industry until 2022. But now, the brothers were free to compete in any other business and in fact, go on to cause more problems for each other. This was probably the worst deal for Anil Ambani, because his brother had since long wanted to enter the telecoms business and was just waiting for the agreement to be scrapped. In 2016, Mukesh Ambani entered the telecom industry with a bang, launching his new mobile network called Jio. Jio came in and quickly captured 150 million customers by offering low-cost and 4G coverage. Jio came and completely disrupted the mobile network industry, and Anil could not keep up with his brother, and Reliance Telecom started suffering badly. Once the largest telecoms company in India, Anil's company lost over 98% of its value in just 3 years. Given their history and long legal battles, this act of kindness by Mukesh Ambani was definitely peak of humiliation for Anil Ambani. You see, he had spent all these years fighting his elder brother in business, in courts, and then eventually to be bailed out by the same person. Embarrassing. Finally, after being dragged in courts again and again and being pursued by lenders to get their money back, Anil Ambani, in February 2020, finally filed for bankruptcy. His dazzling net worth of $42 billion in 2008 came down to zero in just 12 years. While his father's story is from rags to riches, Anil Ambani's story is definitely from riches to rags.